trial. And the other big story today, President Bush appears to have found a way to make a combative Congress work to his advantage. Reports out today that Bush is not happy with Pakistan's help fighting the Taliban, and the president warns that Congress may cut off funding to Pakistan if things don't improve there. And to reinforce the message, the administration sent their #1 enforcer, Vice President Cheney. He made an unexpected visit to Pakistan today to deliver the message in person. Will Bush's strategy work? In a moment, we'll talk with Richard Haas, a former Bush State Department official who's now president of the Council on Foreign Relations. But first, New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, a Democratic presidential candidate and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. Sir, thank you for joining us. What are your concerns, if you have them, about Pakistan's role as an ally in fighting the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda?
Well, here's my concern, Chris. For years, Pakistani prime ministers and presidents, in this case Musharraf, have very little control over their intelligence services. There's a rogue element in their intelligence services that have long had connections with the Taliban, with Al-Qaeda. None of those prime ministers or presidents have been able to control them. And it is very clear that there is a connection between the growth of the Taliban, the strengthening of Al-Qaeda, and the fact that Pakistan is not doing enough to stop them. And so I think the vice president is right. You have to lean on Musharraf, who is our ally. And what you don't want to do is provoke a situation, even though he's not a great champion of human rights, democracy, etc., to have somebody replace him who is less friendly to us, who would cause us real problems, especially if Al-Qaeda and the Taliban are growing. So you're really caught in a very, very dangerous situation. So the good excuse is blame the Democratic Congress, saying, look, President Musharraf, the Congress, which is Democratic now, will cut off assistance to you, will cut off all kinds of aid unless you change. And it's a pretty skillful message to give. We used to do the same in the Clinton administration as a Democratic administration with a Republican Congress. But that's basically the situation.
Well, let's talk about reality here. Isn't it the fact, or is it, I'll ask you, you know more about foreign policy than I do, is it possible that Islamabad does not extend its influence into those tribal areas of the Northwest? I mean, I'm a student of Churchill. That back in the in the late 19th century, the Brits were trying to extend their rule into those areas like Malakand, and they couldn't do it because they were very tough tribal areas. Does Musharraf really rule that region? I mean, we think that Osama bin Laden's up there, right? I mean, can he even reach him if he is there?
Well, that is true, Chris. This is very remote, very rural areas, tribal. They have a lot of connections with the Taliban. They're very rogue elements. I mean, it's like you think the Wild West in the 1800s was really very tumultuous. This area is totally tribal. There's tribal conflicts all the time. But the options that we have, for instance, we probably know where these tribal areas are. If you engage military strikes by the U.S., it could really disrupt the stability of Musharraf. And so you don't want to do that. In other words, his internal stability, because as I once said, the intelligence service, like his CIA, they have really bad ties to these folks. And the CIA there, the intelligence service of Pakistan, really is even more powerful than the military. Yeah. It's more powerful than Musharraf. So it's a real balancing act that I will say the administration is probably carrying out fairly skillfully, but you know, it's very perilous. He certainly is not doing enough to control those tribal elements.
You know, I'm trying to figure out what you're running on as a platform, Governor, and how the Democrats, I saw Hillary the other day, Hillary Clinton took a shot at other Democrats by saying that there's some people that don't believe there's a terrorist threat out there. Who's she talking about? Is she talking about you? Is she talking about Obama? About Kucinich? Who's she saying in the Democratic Party doesn't believe that terrorism is a threat to our country?
Well, I don't know who she's talking about, but I want to tell you.
Don't you take umbrage at the fact that she's broad-brushing other Democrats perhaps to her left? I mean, it's easy to get to her left on the war in Iraq. She takes a somewhat, well, it's a hard, ambivalent position. It's very hard to tell whether she's with Lieberman or she's with the Democratic Party on the issue of the war. But who does she mean when she says that?
Well, she should be very careful. I don't know who she means, but what is important is that we all stay positive, because what we don't want is to be Democrats pictured as being soft on terrorism, on national security, on fighting al-Qaeda. So I believe that I have the strongest credentials in national security. You know, maybe she's voted on these issues. I've been there. I've been to Pakistan. I've talked to the Taliban. President Clinton sent me to try to get Osama bin Laden extradited. I brought a little bit of a peace treaty between the Northern Alliance and the Taliban. It barely lasted. It lasted maybe a few weeks. So I believe it's important we stay positive, especially on issues of national security, and we stay as bipartisan as we can.
Well, you know what I say about you, Governor? People ask me about you guys running for president, Hillary. I say this about you, and I think you're about fourth position right now, but you're within striking distance. I think there's four of you who have a real shot at the nomination. Hillary, of course, Obama, you, and Edwards. I think you've got a real shot. Here's what I say about you. I say we have tough people in the world. It doesn't do any good to go around saying they're evil, and they say we're evil, and we're the heathens, and they're the heathens, and we're the bad guys. That's high school stuff. You got to figure out who you're up against and how you can deal with them. You got to find their weak spots. You got to figure out where you can work them, where you can't work them, where you have to fight them. You seem to be good at that. You like to go up and go head to head with tough guys, don't you?
Yes, I do. And President Clinton used to send me to talk to Sudan, North Korea. We talked to Cuba, and we had success. My point here, Chris, is like today, all the governors met with President Bush, and I said to President Bush, Mr. President, you did the right thing finally with North Korea. You talked to him directly. Why don't you do the same with Iran? Why don't you talk to him?
And what did he say?
Well, he kind of, in a very nice way, said that he wasn't going to do it. But my point there is that unless you negotiate, and you can send tough messages when you negotiate, and talk directly to those that don't share our goals and our interests, you know, with Iran, the last thing we want is for them not to build nuclear weapons. We don't want them to build nuclear weapons. We want them to stop messing around.
Well, what do you make of Hans Blix coming out and saying that as part of the deal to try to pressure them, we got to throw a carrot out there, some non-aggression pact? I mean, I don't know whether the Iranians truly think we're going to attack them. Maybe we do have a plan to attack them. I can't read Cheney. I mean, if he had the call, he probably would be more aggressive. But are they legitimately concerned about us coming after them? He says, Blix says, the arms control guy says, why don't you make a commitment you won't invade or something like that? Then they'll have no excuse to build these weapons.
Well, that's an option, Chris. You know, what does Iran want? All right, Iran doesn't want us messing with them in oil production because they get most of their revenues. So they don't want sanctions from the United States or UN on oil revenues. The Security Council is meeting now. So I believe Iran also wants stability on their border. So I believe they're messing around in Iraq because we're there and they feel threatened. I believe there's more of a community of interest. We don't want Iran all of a sudden to attack Israel. That's an ally. So we got things in common.
No, I think it's more likely that Israel attacks Iran at this point based on what Omerd is saying. Omerd's pretty open about this, and you talk to Ehud Barak on the other side over there, and he's pretty there. And of course, Bibi Netanyahu would love to throw the bomb right now. I mean, clearly Israel is scared to death. They're worried about immigration. They're worried about the long term, not just the short term, of having a nuclear armed enemy so close.
Well, if you read the Iraq Study Group report, it's James Baker, it's Lee Hamilton. I would send James Baker, President Bush, send your own Republican friend from Texas, very skillful. He has talked to the Syrians 11 times before the first Gulf War. He could talk to Iran. He could recommend it. It's bipartisan cover. And I believe what's the cost? What's the alternative is saber rattling against Iran. The alternative is a president who is threatening them, military plans. That's not going to work, and I believe that it makes sense to talk. You don't have to make a big concession when you're negotiating and talking, and even sending a tougher message.
Well, Governor, I wish the president had taken the counsel of people like Jim Baker, but he seems to have made the decision against him years ago. Anyway, thank you very much. Governor Bill Richardson of New Mexico, candidate for the Democratic nomination.